All right, welcome back to the Big Texas Podcast presented by Texas Young Republicans. I am your host, Jordan Overturf, bringing to you another candidate in the race to represent us in the Texas legislature. His name is William Booher, and he is running in Senate District 13 to unseat a career politician, Democrat. We'll get to that here in a minute, but first, as always, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to take care of right now. Early voting continues in the special election runoffs for House District 28 and House District 148. This Fort Bend County and Houston. We got Gary Gates running in HD 28 to make sure we hold on to that Republican seat. Democrats from across the nation have been getting involved, coming down and endorsing in that race. The Democrat who is trying to flip that district. And so if you live in HD 28, remember, early voting continues this week. Election day is Tuesday, January 28th. Also, over in HD 148, Louis LaRota, friend of the podcast, is running to become the first Republican representative in House District 148. That's in Houston proper, stretching from downtown out west. If you want to learn more about these candidates, you can go back and listen to the podcast with Louis, episode 1. You can also visit the RPT page. You can find them on social media. This is an important election to get involved in. Again, special election runoff in HD 28 and HD 148. Make sure you get out there and vote, people. Okay. My guest today is William Booher. He is, like I said, running in Senate District 13 against a Democrat. Well, he's got a primary first, but he is hoping to become the Republican nominee so he can take on a Democrat who is a career politician who was appointed to this position in backroom deals with Democrats a few years back. This is the first election that senator is going to face, and William is trying to give him a serious challenge. William's definitely a character, and we got into some policy issues, but a bigger part of his focus is on the type of representation that Senate District 13 needs. Not the representation it has, but the actual representation that it needs. So I'm going to get out of the way and let him explain more about it, his history, his background. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. William Booher.
People, some women. And one of the things I always tell them, I say, the people who want to find you and help you will. Don't go chasing rainbows and stars, because if they don't want to deal with you, they're not going to deal with you. Be aggressive. Put yourself out there. Say, I'm capable of and I'm willing to. I have capacity.
So is that the approach you're taking here in SD 13 for this race?
So I think, so when you think about Senate District 13, we haven't had a Republican up until this point run for this forever and a day. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fellow who's running for Booher Smiles was a former state rep.
Yep.
And then he got his particular role because Rodney Ellis got a different sitting. And before that, Rodney Ellis sat in the seat forever and a day. He's a great guy. He's that kind of Democrat that everybody can get with. Mm-hmm. Booher has his own set of issues. And I grew up in this district, so I grew up in an area called Sunnyside and Harlem Clark. I went to the schools in this district.
There you go.
And now we live in an area called Missouri City.
Okay.
In this district.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, that's where Beyonce used to live.
Yeah, I know it well. I grew up in A-Leaf. So
so you know it. That's in this district.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we haven't had anybody take care of us. When I think about SD 13 growing up, right, folks come and make their money there, and then they go back home. So you have the medical center there, the museum district there, you have the energy corridor there, you have downtown there, you have all of the money-making machines are in this district. Yeah. And the folks who live in this district don't benefit from that. People come, they get their money, and they go home, and they leave abandoned buildings for us to guard. They come, they get their drinks, they leave vomit on the floor. And meanwhile, the folks who are in this district don't benefit from it, right? Unless they're in some service profession toward it. And now what you see here, whether it's Sharpstown, whether it's Acres Home, whether it's Fifth Ward, is all of this gentrification that's going on. And, Senate Bill 2 came out last year where it was supposed to at least limit the taxes increases. Yeah. And Booher Smiles was in this district. He was absent on the vote. Now, Booher is a black guy just like I am.
Yep.
his folks are from this area, just like mine are. And these old folks whose first homes as freed black folks, taxes are going up, and you're absent on the vote. You know, that's the kind of stuff that has got to stop, right? You know, this self-enriching, whether it's, you know, blue or red, you know, you need somebody out there saying, you know what, I'm going to cuss everybody out. I'm not on gang Republican. I'm not on gang Democrat. But I care about the folks in this district. When you think about SD 13, half the homes in this district speak Spanish, right? And that's part of the reason we as Republicans are kind of messing this district up.
Yeah.
Because when you pull the numbers, they fit into this independent category. So even though you have 1.2 million people in this, you pull the numbers for the people who voted in the total number in the last 4 primaries, 25,000.
Yeah.
What is going on? What's going on is we're not doing an effective job of reaching real people. You know, so when I think about the clubs that are attached to this district, the folks, they enjoy a good little barbecue party at a fancy house, a good little cigar here and there. The majority party, the majority race. Then you look at the black and brown folks, and they have their own elitism going on, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's reaching out to real folks, talking to them at a real level. And when we think about how we are approaching this category, as I've gone through this process, everyone says, "Oh, you just go to the churches." No, the churches are biased. Frankly, they already are, in position for other folks who've been in here for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to do more than go to a regular church, right? We've got to get. You know, one of the things I talked about is so part of my background, I used to in my consulting days did work with entertainers, right?
Okay.
You know, and the big thing about reaching this population, you need to go to the streets. You need street entertainers. You need promoters who know these people, who have those lists, and who can offer you a venue that they're comfortable in.
Yeah.
And that's something we're not doing a very good job at. You know, people, you look at the special election with not Pete Olson's election. Gary Gates.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and finally Fort Bend Republicans have decided to get out their houses and go knock on a door for him. That's great, but we shouldn't be defending that seat, right? You know, and that's the problem is we're on the defense right now as Republicans, and there's no reason for that. You know, certainly not in an area like Fort Bend should they be on defense for that seat.
Well, I think part of that is the amount of national attention that has suddenly come down upon this little House district seat, right? You know, and part of it is certainly we need to make sure we're proactive and not letting Democrats control the narrative in 2020. These two races certainly are an opportunity. You know, HD 28 is an opportunity for Democrats to come in and say, "Oh, look, the tide is turning." On the other side of that, you got 148 with Louis LaRota, you know, where you have the opposite, where Republicans are trying to turn that district red, and you know, on the other side, try and control the narrative as well. So, you know, you're right. We do need to be making sure that we're out there. We are, you know, on the offensive. We are being engaged rather than waiting to be engaged.
Absolutely. I think Louis' race is a perfect template for what we need to do, period.
Yeah.
You know, and when I think about Texas Senate District 13 that I'm running in, you know, what's really important is why not turn the tide on there? You know, why not put the Democrats on defense? You have a man who's been accused of a lot of issues in the seat as a Democrat, a man who other Democratic senators wanted to censure on the Texas House floor. And this isn't a seat we saw to say, let's go after and let's do it. And, you know, part of it was, you know, my background, I've worked on, you know, I grew up in Houston. I went to Yale undergrad. I worked at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey and all these places, and I went to Columbia for business school. I've worked internationally. So, you know, my first boss was Steve Mnuchin. You know?
Okay.
And so, you know.
You still have contact with him, maybe?
Right. Well, you know, I was a Trump White House fellow for this region about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I'm very much a Republican. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I come back and I see my home district, you know, along 59, right, in this area called Sharpstown, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's just a bunch of parking lots, right? And I co-founded the Southwest Pachyderms Club, right? And it's in that area. And I'm talking to some of the folks, and I'm like, this is the next world going on right here. All of them. These are Republicans. Oh no, nobody wants to live here. Okay, this is SD 13. This is 5 minutes from the Galleria, 15 minutes from downtown.
Yeah.
And all I see are parking lots, i.e. future places for high rises. This is prime real estate right now. They're waiting for everybody to leave, right? That's where you put parking lots up, right? Or car lots or whatever you call it. Is you're just waiting for everybody to leave and run it in the ground. But we don't have the vision, right? Because we're so stuck on, let's get Fort Bend. No. We didn't do what we were supposed to do, right? That's why we're fighting in Fort Bend now. But we can put energy behind maintaining what we should already have.
Yeah.
And then looking at areas like the one Louis in, the one I'm running in Senate District 13.
Well, and I don't think people understand that Boris hasn't actually faced an election challenge in this seat. He was appointed. There's some speculation on the method in which he earned that appointment, but it was all controlled by Democratic Party leadership. There were no voters involved in putting Boris there.
None whatsoever. I mean, Boris used to be a state rep for an area east of 288, basically. So South Park, Summer 3rd Ward.
Yeah.
So this seat actually is this huge check mark that's going from all the way west down into Stafford, into Westbury, into Braeswood, into the Museum District, the 3rd Ward District, the Medical Center, all the way up to the Entertainment, Reliance Stadium, all the way through downtown, and then some. He's never run this race. When Boris came to do his 86 legislator update, he had to borrow a courtroom from Judge Clouser because he knew no one out in Missouri City.
Wow.
And then the interesting thing about it is, I went up to 5th Ward. There's one of the oldest Black Catholic churches, and I went there, I guess back in the fall, they were doing a trip, and so I gave them breakfast and got a chance to meet with them. And Rodney Ellis's commissioners actually gave them a bus to go up. They don't know him. They know him. They know his mom.
Yeah.
But he's not from there, and I was shocked. I thought he would know that district better. So I think it's a huge opportunity if we find the right candidate. So when I look at my competitor who's running, we have a second Republican competitor. She's traditional. She's a traditional Republican who I just don't think is going to connect. For you to get these Black and brown folks who think white people are racist and anti them, who attach all the negativity people throw on Donald Trump and all this other stuff to all of us, right? You're going to have somebody that can have that conversation with them. So if you look at the things that I've done in this race so far, I spent time, we did a 5th Ward backpack giveaway with Eric Dick and his group. Huge church in 5th Ward. We gave, I think, 1,800 backpacks away. One day, I took my team. We did Meals on Wheels for elderly people.
Okay.
We did 800 breakfasts. So the way that works is you actually go in, and the folks whose homes they go to, it's a whole week's worth of breakfast they have.
Oh, wow.
And so that was during the, first of the year, the New Year. So you didn't want them to be without that kind of help.
Yeah.
So we've done that. I've also have done a lot of work with youth, right? Even though you look at the numbers and older people, the ones who are voting, I still go back to the Donald Trump theory that the older people are voting because we haven't told young folks what it's about. Last weekend, I went to the Harris County Jail and registered people, right?
Okay.
Literally, I get there, I'm in the pods, right? So you talk, at the little metal table with everyone and explaining what an election is. I literally had to break it down and explain to them, you could be a Republican. They had no idea of this set of folks. Now, when I think about it, they were automatically predisposed to saying they were a Democrat. And so when I explained to them what the primary process was, you can pick a primary, you can choose to vote in either one. It doesn't mean you're bound to it in the November election. So many of them wanted to know more about being Republican. So many more of them wanted to know what was about, who was on it for the Republican platform, because that's not what the media puts out there.
Yeah.
Right? We got, a shift show going on. And then you got the 10 failed Democratic presidential candidates who, can't inspire anybody.
And are dropping like flies.
And calling everybody racist in the process.
Yeah, and trying to endorse people and control their supporters and who they go and vote for.
Well, and then the best is Bloomberg, right? I'm going to drop $1 billion, but money shouldn't count.
$56 billion was the headline I read today.
Right.
He's willing to spend $56 billion to take down Donald Trump.
Right. You got that kind of ego, right? That's the same ego. What's the old man that did the trial against him, Nadler, that hates him.
Yeah.
Hates him from 40 years ago when they were all boys. he still has a schoolyard fight with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You will do anything you can to keep this man from being successful. And my other thing, and again, this is why we have to think about as Republicans, who's the right candidate that can give us our right message. I have no problem taking it on. When I go out there into our district, the funny thing is one of my mother's clubs has a lot of Booher Smiles supporters in it.
Yeah.
And so, my mom, my sister, my godmother, they're handing out the card. They're like, he's running against Boris. Right. Yeah. Let's have this conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Let's say why we're going to do this. When I did another one, there's a distinguished black women are part of an organization called the Links.
Okay.
And so I was talking to one woman about it, and she's like, well, I just can't support a Democrat. I said, okay, but you can vote for Boris Miles. Given all you know, you can go to the Daily Beast and Google Boris Miles, and it is shocking what is in that article. And there's no way you're going to tell me that if you look at the number of independents in this district, if you get to those independents and you give them the right set of information, they can consciously go in an election. Remember, this is an election that there's no more straight ticketing ballot.
Yeah.
You have to consciously say, I'm going to choose this man accused of these things in this Daily Beast article.
Yeah.
Right. And I doubt very seriously when you eliminate all other issues between a candidate on our side with their candidate. If you have to pick the same little boy you all know, the boy that's been in the Houston Chronicle since he was in third grade at Grissom Elementary, the kid who went to Westbury, the kid who went to health professions, right? The kid who brought home the International Science and Engineering Fair grand prize to Houston. If you have to do all of that, because you've known me forever, the kid that went to vacation Bible school at Windsor Village Baptist Church, the kid that hung out at Brentwood Baptist Church, there's no way you're going to tell me you can vote for him, right? He's had his time. He did what he did. Let him stand on his own. I mean, one of the things that peeve me off, right, with the Democrats, and again, I come from a good Democratic family, is what have you done for us? Right. Boris has, he has a Democratic challenger now. And, she's a nice lady. The funny thing is the woman I'm running against is Melinda Morris McConnell.
Okay.
And this woman's name is Melinda Morris as well. And they both are using Melinda Morris. So our Republican Melinda is an I.
Okay.
The Democratic one is an E. So I think that's hilarious. These Melindas say, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
So you're obviously, a big part of this cycle is voter outreach, voter engagement,
Absolutely.
and you've got that down pat, clearly. What are the specific issues that voters are keying in on for, when you're out talking to them?
Right. So for us, when we get out there, right, and again, it's a very diverse district, the biggest things that we're talking about is A, infrastructure, B, education, and C is regulation.
Yeah.
What I pull all that together is to say, Senate District 13 is an economic engine, and folks want to participate in that. When I look at a lot of the things that Boris has done and other Democrats have done, it's, we're going to have a job fair and give you a job, right? But what people want is we're going to teach you how to set your business up. We're going to, as your state senator, create this system that you can come on in here, and we're going to talk to you who wants, Houston Community College does this wonderful small business outreach. You have another minority business development associated with HCC. There is no reason why the state senator should not be working with them to give you an off-the-shelf packet on how to get things done, how to go through a bank process. And there's so many people. When I was a consultant at Booz Allen, at McKinsey, one of the things that we spent a lot of time with was, let's volunteer and be a consultant. So my mentor is a fellow named Reggie Van Lee. Reggie is a black guy, went to MIT, Harvard Business School, senior partner at Booz Allen. He's now at the Carlyle Group.
Okay.
He grew up in Sunnyside, right? He went to Worthing High School. And so, that was one of his biggest things is giving back. And there's so few of us that actually make our money and say, I want to teach other people how to do it. One of my main initiatives that I would love to do, instead of taking all that money to have an office somewhere, right? Let's do some virtual offices and let's get a big complex for, Silicon Valley type of stuff, startups and teaching kids how to do this and pairing. We have 3 universities in our area. We have the University of Houston, we have Rice, we have Texas Southern. We have actually, Houston Baptist is in the district as well. There is no reason on God's green earth that we can't find 10 kids per school or 10 college kids who are in business who want to participate with teams of kids and align them from business people in our district to the college kids to the high school kids that are interested, right? Because when I was in high school, again, science fair is my thing. It was hard for me. I had to write. I had a lot of help from Mobile and Exxon, but I would write notes and people would send me things. I had a mentor at Rice. I would go up and meet with her. That really got me over the hump to win.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff I think that a senator's office should be doing. I look at all these senators in Texas and say, what are you doing? Like, you look at the fellow, is his name Royce West or?
Yeah, who's running for the U.S. Senate seat against Cornyn, yeah.
And then they open his books because it's federal now.
Yeah.
How do you make $700 a month and you're worth that? And then when you open your books, it said that you check for yourself. It says that he's making money from Houston ISD, Dallas ISD. That's bananas, And I think somebody showed me a document when Sylvester Turner's books got open, how Boris Miles or somebody had a contract or something with him.
Yeah.
And then you look at, Boris had a cigar bar. A private members club cigar bar. And all the folks in the district used to go to it. And as you say, then he gets, this seat that way. So my question is what's going on in these back rooms? Right?
Yeah.
And again, I take Republicans to task for this as well. What's going on in this House? What's going on at Cafe Annie's in the members' room? Like, I'm not just jumping on Boris because that's another thing, and this is a warning to us as Republicans. One of the things that completely turned me off with this party was going to these different meetings, whether it's with the pachyderms, whether it's with the so-and-so Republican club, or da-da-da-da-da. If you could hear the pure vitriol they speak of Sheila Jackson Lee, the pure vitriol they speak of Al Green. Now, I'm no fan of either one of them, right? But when you attack those two in particular the way we do, right, and you don't attack their white Democratic counterparts in that way, it raises a red flag.
Yeah.
And I'll say it up front. Sheila Jackson Lee has always been, she's tough, but she shows up, right? Almost like a Maxine Waters. I did a meeting in New York with Columbia Law School, and she came up and she spoke, and that was great. I was her constituents, clearly not a Democrat.
Yeah.
But she came up and spoke on our behalf. That's the kind of stuff that I hope that my run does for us, right? We've got to cross these aisles. Boris put in the last legislative session, he put up a bill that would have declared, I guess, that Northwest Houston area, part of the district, an economic zone.
Okay.
But he couldn't get along with the governor, apparently.
Yeah.
And the governor vetoed it. We don't need that, right?
Yeah.
I don't have time. I honestly have no time for vanity projects like, the graveyard folks, and fighting Abbott. And my people are hungry who are living today.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it seems like you have a very strong community up platform, right?
Absolutely.
And it seems like your interest is in using the office to build bridges to other partners in the community, so that way the constituents that you serve who elect you and those who don't elect you still benefit from all the work that you're supposed to be doing as a state senator. I guess from the policy side of things, obviously having a staff that is dedicated to that mission helps you. But from the policy standpoint, what do you think can be done in order to get more of these community up programs going?
Right. And so I start off with, I'm careful not to use the word program, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in programs. What I believe in you doing, what did Trump say about the Ukraine guy? I just want you to do the right thing. I just want him to do the right thing, And I think, I'm sorry, if I can bully these people, if the Senate role is a bully pulpit and all these different things, then you should influence, right? I think the role of the senator is to say, you know what, I'm going to take the lead on this program. I'm going to find a counterpart. So for instance, one of the things I want to do with education is really look at how we think about the 12-year program, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we do 10 years and rewrite legislation that says that in the last 2 years, you can take the same money we were going to allocate toward this high school, which isn't performing,
Yeah.
and you can go to community college. You can go to welding school. You can start your first 2 years there and reduce your long-term debt.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't we do that? I don't understand that.
Well, I think you get a big pushback from public ed, like who is always counting the dollars that are coming in to their districts.
Right. And the funny thing is, I was on a plane during Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Sat next to a man in LA, and he was talking about Maxine Waters. And I said, "Oh, Lord Jesus, Maxine Waters." He was like, No, I kind of like her. I said, "Oh," he started to explain. Maxine Waters, so there was a program in Los Angeles, just like I'm describing. It was one school in downtown LA, and it was outperforming all these other schools.
Yeah.
The kids were getting degrees they could use, that they're not on the system and not, repeating it. And they slowly tried to shut it down. And he said to me, I wrote everybody. No one listened to me. He was a teacher in the program. He said it wasn't until I wrote Maxine Waters, and she went out there, with her bullhorn, and that's the kind of thing I'm saying. When you talk about, okay, how we're going to cross boundaries. Well, if Maxine Waters has figured this out at congressional level,
Yeah.
let's just, see what Auntie Max wants to talk about. That works, those cross things. But recognizing that a Sheila Jackson Lee doesn't have to be an enemy when we're representing the same set of folks. And so in my district, for instance, it crosses Senate District 7, so that Cindy Siegel and Wesley Hunt are running in there.
Yeah.
There's no reason why they can't work with their state senator, right? Somebody was telling somebody, Wesley Hunt, he's your clean, good. Oh my goodness, I'm sounding like Biden now. But he's he's on it, right?
Yeah.
And so is Cindy. I mean, William is he's a little more rambunctious, right? But then that's the state house. They have to be perfect in that congressional level.
Uh-huh.
So there's no reason why I don't think we have. I don't understand why we don't have more linkages. So for instance, Ivanka Trump has all of these amazing. So we talk about policy levels, and this is what I mean by what your state senator should be doing. Ivanka has a whole program where she's gotten Microsoft, Google, and all these people roped into giving kids jobs and training programs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have a Republican president, a Republican governor, Republican senators, and if you have a Republican senator from Senate District 13, he's going to get on the phone and say, what's going on? Can we get some of this here? Right? And so I'm a big believer in keeping our costs down.
Yeah.
If we're already doing it, let's not replicate it. Let's figure out how it can fit into this process, right? So let's think about these things like modules, how they fit together. And I'm not saying we have to do all this stuff together, because this is another thing about the state house and all this nonsense that's going on. We don't have to agree on, but 3 things we're going to get done this year, right? I'm sure there are 3 things we can all agree on, and leave this other stuff to fight about in the press. But, we all agree.
So wait, for you, what would those 3 things be? What would be the 3 things that you would want the House and the Senate to agree on?
The first thing I would love us to do. So, for instance, when you look at Houston, right, we have an infrastructure problem.
Yeah.
Right? And when I say infrastructure, it crosses lots of things, but let's start off with our flooding issue, right?
Yeah.
Part of the reasons why we're flooding is you have the Harris County flood zone, the Fort Bend County, the Houston, then you have new developers who are using things and not building correct flooding plains and all these different things. You have all these different folks who have responsibility for this stuff. The state, that's something. To me, if you ask me what's the state's role, something that's affecting an area like Houston, then we're flooding and we're losing money when it rains, we lose lights. That's a state level thing, right? And it needs to be pulled together, or at least it needs to be led from that level.
Yeah.
You talk about, we had Hurricane Harvey. The program that George P. Bush did is doing more to rebuild homes than the program that Sylvester Turner in Houston is doing.
And demanded. Let's be clear. The mayor demanded to have control over that money and those programs. And we have seen clearly from the reporting recently that he has done a horrible job.
Horrible job. But we have $95,000 interns. And
firefighters who are watching their pensions evaporate because of poor management at the city level.
Absolutely. And it's funny, even things like, so I've spent time out with the Fort Bend Sheriff Niels, just in the Fort Bend County Jail. And this isn't necessarily a plug because this congressional 22, you may get cut if you put your position out.
Well, I'm surprised you're not also running in that.
Why not?
half of the population in that district is running.
But Sheriff Niels, I went out there with him maybe like last May or so. He toured me around. He did such a good job at that jail. Like things like their commissary that they get. He takes that money and pays for Wharton Community College professors to come in. He connects local folks who will hire them. Folks come in and tell the guys, if you finish this program, you'll have a job getting out of here. So he's very forward thinking. He has a farm that the prisoners work at.
Oh yeah, I know it. I drove by it a lot as a kid.
And so that's the kind of when I say, okay, he's taking his office and doing non-traditional things to make it happen. That's the same kind of attitude I think a state senator in particular, should be doing. How can I use my powers of influence in this role to do things other than get, a Vincent Elkins another contract? If Vincent Elkins wants this contract, what is Vincent Elkins going to do for these kids down here?
Yeah.
Right? You're going to pair them up? I mean, I have a friend from business school, has a hedge fund in Baltimore.
Okay.
And they literally, part of these people's compensation package is to go out and help those kids in those areas. That's the kind of stuff, I'm not telling, Baker Botts, Vince, any of all the fancy ones, I may get sued for this, but any of those folks or Exxon or any of them, here's what you should do. But what I am saying is, hey, here's a program I've seen work. Right. So you talk about my experience. When I left Houston, I went to New Haven. My first job was actually in Charlotte with Nations Bank. And then from there, I went back up to New York, worked with Booz Allen Hamilton, and then went over to JP Morgan in London and built out our credit derivatives product there. So I covered Europe, the Middle East, and Africa in that process. I came back, I did a startup, went back to business school at Columbia, summered at the Boston Consulting Group, came out, worked at a company called Mitchell Madison, which is a spinoff of McKinsey's Financial Services Partners.
Yeah.
So I was in the middle of all of that fun stuff when the country was melting down.
Yeah.
The funny thing is there's a fellow out in South Carolina running against Lindsey Graham, Jamie Harrison. So Jamie was a WIPS intern or whatever the word would be. And Jamie and I actually went to college together. And when the process was melting down, we start talking because he's there trying to convince these people this is why we have to do this. The world is on fire. But I got called in and I helped with the dissolution of GM into GM Financial, General Motors into GM Financial and Ally Bank.
Yeah.
From there, I went on. I did the merger of PNC Bank with National City. So I spent time there. And then from there, I went down and did the merger of Wells Fargo, Wachovia, and A.G. Edwards.
Well, as we wrap up here, before we do, I want to make a comparison here that maybe sound a little familiar to our listeners. You sound like a guy who has not been terribly politically active, who has spent some years, building yourself in your career, working in business, approaching things from a very business-minded, community-oriented position. And 4 years ago, we saw a candidate rise to the top who is, a little rambunctious, has some of those same similar background and qualities, and the country latched onto it. As you get ready for this primary on March 3rd, here's your chance right now to our listeners, hopefully SD13 audience. What is your message to them? Why should they support William Booher?
You should support William Booher because it is insanity to keep doing the same things we're doing, right? It is insane to keep sending lifelong politicians to this state house. It is insane to send somebody who doesn't have anything other than I'm a strong Republican that wears red, right? We need a plan. We need a plan. And William Booher's plan is very simple: economic development. I believe if you give people the opportunity to lift themselves up, they will not only lift themselves up, they'll lift their family up, they'll lift their communities up, and ultimately they will come to us. They will see why it benefited them not to just get, a $15 minimum wage, which fired half their family when we lifted it, but to actually say, hey, here's a loan program already in existence. Here's some training. Hey, here's how you do it. And that's what I'm about. And you also need Republicans like me who are not afraid to go in the district, right? I have cornrows right now, for God's sake. Don't tell anybody. Oh, I just did. Because, you can't be afraid of the folks who you want to represent. We cannot continue to try to legislate people who folks perceive us hating. And if you want to know more about us, we have a website, believe it or not. It's Booher 2020 txsenate13.org. And you can find us on the Facebook. Yeah, I did just say the Facebook. You can find us there, Booher. I think it's Booher 2020 as well. And get back to us. Let us know.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. If you win the primary, we'll bring you back and we'll have a little bit longer conversation about what it's going to take to defeat the Democrat in November.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
you
so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you again to William for joining us. He went real quick on the website, so I'm going to give it to you again. It's Booher, Booher 2020 TX Senate 13, the number 13.org. If you want to find him on Facebook, you can search for Booher 2020 or email him William at Booher 2020 TX Senate 13.org. We got plenty more candidates coming up. I'm going to be heading north this weekend to go talk to some candidates in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Really looking forward to that. If you're a candidate and you want to come on the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Texas Podcast. You think I have this down by now. Again, Twitter, Instagram, at Big Texas Podcast. Make sure you're following Texas Young Republicans on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and as always, you can go to our website, texasyr.gop. We got a lot of work to do before March 3rd in the primary, and I want to interview as many candidates as possible. To those that have come on and those who have listened, subscribed on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff, we appreciate you so much. We thank you for listening, tuning in, taking part, engaging, getting active. That's it for me. Until then, friends, we'll see you down the road.